Dit was die stem van Laura Branigan met Self-Control. Dis 3:30, jy luister na Maluti FM 97.1, die program Sand in die Uurglas. En dit is nou tyd vir ons insetsel leefstyl saam met David Henderson. Dave, how are you today?
I'm good, Nancy. I'm staring outside at happy skies, so unfortunately it's more good weather for Cape Town.
Oh, that's wonderful. Dave, how's it been the last week? Were you guys busy at work?
It's crazy. I think, like all industries, December has that rush where authors just want to get their things finished as quickly as possible and capitalize on the Christmas, buying rush. So, yeah, just like the rest of South Africa, I'm sure, it's coming up to that festive crunch time.
Have you set up your Christmas list yet? Bought some presents or not really?
I am single-handedly the worst present buyer you will ever meet. So apologies to anyone who might be expecting anything from me. As per normal, you're more than likely going to be disappointed.
Oh my goodness. I know you've got good taste. I just think you just need a little bit more planning.
I think guys in general just aren't that good at buying presents. I feel guilty, but I can watch how other people put so much effort into the thoughts and the ideas and the gifts, and yeah, for me it's more a practical choice, I think.
So Dave, we've been talking about publishing, self-publishing. There's some questions I want to ask you before we move on to the book. The book today is called Blue Jellyfish Syndrome. But before we get to that, if I publish a book, how do I do research to make sure it reaches the intended audience?
So take a step back, and who is the intended audience? Because too many authors don't know who they're writing for. And by the time the book is finished, and you're asking the author, who's this book for? It's often too late, because the author often sits and goes, well, the default answer, which happens to be the worst answer, is, well, it's for everyone. Because no book should necessarily be for everyone. What happens is it makes it so difficult to market a book if your target audience is too wide. Because if a book is for everyone, how do you position the book in the market? Are you going to be using specific colors? When your website guy is busy building your website, he's absolutely going to hate, that this is such a broad target. So the first thing is to decide who your ideal reader is and actually visualize them. So as you're writing and as you're doing the marketing work along the way as well, visualize the person. How old are they? What country do they live in? Do they speak a certain language? Are they in a certain income bracket? And that's going to frame a lot of how the book is written, where the book is sold. For example, is it sold digitally or is it sold also inside physical bookshops? So yeah, one of the most important steps is first to decide who that book is intended for.
Dave, what is vital to consider when you're choosing a book title?
You always get me just as I'm sipping my coffee. So the book title, now I'm going to break it up into 3 different parts, because often an author gets stuck on a book title and goes, I've got this one chance, this one space, this one bit of words to use, when actually you don't. So actually what an author has is probably 4 different locations actually, if you consider the blurb as well. Now the first location at the author's disposal is going to be the obvious title. The main title, that's the big, the big words on the book's front cover. The second spot that the author has to play with is actually a subtitle. And the subtitle's job is to further clarify the title. Obviously that does apply a little more to non-fiction books. So typically fiction books don't often have subtitles, but for non-fiction it's a very good idea to have a subtitle that explains what your catchy title actually is about, what your catchy title and the book's content's about. And the third spot that the author has, and this applies a little more to an online environment, is actually a series field. In other words, if your book is part of a series, which hopefully it should be, because that's a great way to leverage your income, to earn more income from writing more than one book and linking them together as a series, and you're actually able to list the series field within Amazon. So the title is normally something an author inherently knows. And an author normally, you can't normally ask someone else to give you a title. But normally what an author can do, for example, where I help an author, is if they nominate several titles to me, I can normally take the best bits and help them emerge with something that I think commercially is going to capture your attention. And the other thing which often I have to remind an author to do is to include the subtitle, because it's free advertising essentially. It helps the reader to make a better informed choice about whether this book is for them, but it also makes your book that much more visible within online searches, because you're able to include one or two terms that a person might be typing in, for example, to Amazon, that's going to mean your book ranks within that first page of search results.
Dave, so how important is categorizing my book online?
Okay, so depending on where your book ends up online, for example, I'm always going to lean back towards Amazon again, because Amazon holds the market share of ebooks worldwide. Now, Amazon gives you two categories to choose from. Some other stores online, so if you're going to avoid Amazon and go for an alternative platform, give you up to 5 categories, but 2 is a safe bet. And so while you're loading your book online, you actually make a choice of where you feel this book belongs, its primary category, fiction, non-fiction, memoirs, self-help, whatever the case might be. And then you're allowed to choose a second category if you think the book overlaps, in genre. And aside from just categories, the other tool Amazon and other bookstores give you to leverage are keywords. So you're allowed to actually tag a book with specific keywords or key phrases that then further help the bookstore understand what your book's content is. Because obviously the bookstore doesn't necessarily scan through your whole book and automatically determine. I wish it did, and that's a feature that we're hoping for soon. But at the moment, it's a mixture of your choice of genre at the start, as well as the keywords that you're going to use that determine where the book ends up inside Amazon, for example.
Well, that's interesting. I did not know that. Yeah.
I hope so.
So, Dave, how do you establish a price for your ebook? How do you know that, it's affordable for everyone while you're still making a profit?
It's interesting. So I'll start talking and you tell me when to stop, because this is a topic that has so many little branches attached to it. So, for example, the first thing to know as a South African is that you are typically pricing in dollars and not rands. There are a few shops now that are welcoming South Africans, and that will allow you to list in rand, but generally you're pricing in dollars. The second thing to realize is, for ebooks, there is no cost of selling a book. Your cost goes into the design of the book, the editing of the book, but you're not paying money to sell each ebook to each reader that orders a copy. And so you aren't pricing heavily, you're pricing lower because you're aiming to sell more copies of this book. And then with the international market, it's been around for a couple of years. So people have been selling ebooks through Amazon, for example, for, I think, probably since around 2007 or 2008. And what that means is it's an existing market where pricing is already matured. So you can't walk into Amazon and say, my book's worth $100, when the rest of your competition is selling it at $5, for example. So it's always a very good idea to go into the shelf that you want to sell your book from as a reader would, and actually look at the pricing of the best-selling books in the shelf to get an idea of what you should be targeting. Then there are smaller caveats when it comes to Amazon. In other words, Amazon pays you depending on one or two small bits of information. For example, Amazon pays an author more if the author prices the book where Amazon wants you to, which is generally between $3 and $10. Amazon says, if you price it between 3 and 10, we will pay you more money. We will pay you a higher royalty percentage of 70% if you price between that range. And so what Amazon's silently doing in the background is guiding the author to price the book competitively by using that royalty payout rate, for example.
Oh, that's wonderful. Dave, if you would say, what genre of books are most popular in South Africa at the moment?
We're a little back to fun, funny enough. So I think we spoke about this in one of our previous chats, where if you're writing fiction in South Africa, it's very easy to get, dejected and go like, no one likes my book, I'm a bad writer, publishers are rejecting me. But South Africa happens to be a society of non-fiction readers. So when you walk into exclusive books, you're typically going to find the latest fiction releases tucked away on a back shelf. You're going to find the latest non-fiction right up front in your face. So South Africa tends to consume non-fiction mostly, and you're going to find that reflected with the publishers. Approaching a publisher with a fiction book is a little tough because they generally are going to be looking for, obviously a proven author, but also an author with a book they know sells well within South Africa. And so that's why for writers of fiction especially, going digital is going to help a lot.
Well, David, we're going to take a small music break and you can sip your coffee and then we'll talk about the book, Blue Jellyfish.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks. I'm on the line with Dave Henderson and he's going to tell us about the book, Blue Jellyfish Syndrome. Dave, tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So I thought before I jump straight into the book, how would you like to hear a writing joke?
Oh, yes, please tell me.
Okay. Now, this is a beautiful joke because it actually includes two different groups of people, one writers and two Germans. So, Ranzi, why is the German writer always starving?
No, tell me.
Because he is paid by the word. Now, that's a joke you're only going to get if you know German people.
Definitely.
So,
Dave, so tell me, before we move on to the book, you always go to the German book fair. What's it like? What is the atmosphere like?
It's hard to describe to people. So as a South African, to get the scope of, so the German book fair is one of the top 3 in the world. You have the London Book Fair, you have the German, the Frankfurt Book Festival, and now I've slipped where the third one is, but it's definitely one of the biggest in the world, I think, by the amount of space occupied as opposed to the amount of people. And it's got multiple halls, so there's about 8 or 9 different massive halls.
Oh,
each hall is subdivided into sections. Each section is subdivided into aisles, and it is mind-blowing the amount of people that get together within the industry. It's unbelievable. Like you're walking and there's cosplay happening with, everyone's getting dressed up for, whatever favorite characters from their books. And it's over 3 or 4 days. In the first few days, they actually open first to industry professionals. So the first couple of days is generally where you have all your meetings with the important people within the industry. And then the last day or two are actually open to the public. And that's where the readers kind of cram into the halls to maybe meet and greet with their favorite authors. And it's sort of 5 days of standing, continuous standing. And for the past 2 or 3 years, I've represented South Africa. So we've been part of the South African delegation. We had a stand with about 11 or 12 different publishers from South Africa kind of manning the fort at the Frankfurt Book Fair.
Oh, that's amazing. So, Dave, I had to ask you that question. So I got 5 minutes left. Will you please tell us about Blue Jellyfish Syndrome?
Ranzi, if you're looking for 5 minutes, I'm the man who can squeeze as much excitement into 5 minutes as possible.
Go for it.
So, the book we're looking at today, it caught my eye, and I think it caught your eye as well, because it's quite a relevant topic for where we are with lockdown. So the title of the book is simple but catchy. It's the Blue Jellyfish Syndrome. The subtitle that we spoke about is how to break free from stigma and maintain hope while living with a mental illness. So as we spoke about, the subtitle clarifies what the title is about. And as I mentioned, this is such a relevant book for where we are at the moment because I don't know about you, but the couple months of hard lockdown, we weren't really allowed to leave houses. I suppose for Clarence this is different because who's going to stop you? But I can tell you from living in Cape Town where we didn't really step outside that much, mentally it was very, very taxing. And so this book just feels like it's a perfect book for where we are right now. And the author, Karen Unrue, I know she's very passionate, and the book details some of Karen's journey, some of her upbringing that led to her suffering from mental illness and how she dealt with that. So it's a bit of a shorter read. I had a look and I see it's between 7,000 and 8,000 words. So Amazon has a special shelf for shorter reads and it's classified accordingly. And if you're okay with it, I will read the blurb of the book.
Yes, please.
So the blurb starts off, I grew up in a fire and brimstone religion. My mother was bipolar, and I endured 10 years in an abusive marriage. Not surprisingly, I developed complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and for years I felt little else but fear, self-loathing, and helplessness. I tell you my story, but it was mostly devoted to the subject of how I managed to move on and love the life I live, because I want you to know you can too. I spent 16 years as a trainer and mentor, explaining the topics I cover in the Blue Jellyfish Syndrome to clients in London-based mental charities. I use powerful, unexpected, and humorous examples. I bring fresh and unique perspectives to much talked about mental health subjects because, yes, knowledge is power, but only if the knowledge hits home, keeps you awake, and starts you thinking. Here are the topics I cover. Number 1, my story. Number 2, stigma, what it is and why you need to know about it. Number 3, why don't people understand what you're going through? Number 4, why do you have a low opinion of yourself and what you can do about it? Number 5, self-talk. Is yours healthy or toxic? Number 6, how do you maintain hope? And number 7, final words. Those of us who experience mental illness know there are no quick fixes, but in this book, I provide you with the necessary tools to gradually chip away at symptoms like low self-esteem, internalized stigma, and the inner critic so that you can move on to like yourself and the life you live more than you do today. Contrary to public opinion, we are not weak or failures because we have mental health issues. We are warriors who daily fight invisible battles. In this book, I put weapons in your hands to help you fight more effectively. So that's the blurb, and as you can see, it's very, very engaging.
It
And
is. And the cover was so striking, you know, I
beautiful,
absolutely
right?
love it. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And the obvious question is why Blue Jellyfish Syndrome? And she explains in the front matter of the book that it was a title she gave to a client of hers. It was another word she gave a client to use to describe what the client was suffering from. Because as soon as the words were used of post-traumatic stress disorder, for example, it comes with attachment of baggage. You know, people hear that phrase and they think bad things. Where giving what her client was suffering a different title helped alleviate some of that emotional baggage. And that's where the Blue Jellyfish Syndrome gets its name from. Just another way to describe a problem in a way that doesn't feel as stigmatized.
That is wonderful. Dave, thank you for such an informative afternoon. I've enjoyed our chat. I've enjoyed the book, and I know the book is available on Amazon, so you guys can go and have a look. Dave, I'm looking forward to chatting you again next Thursday. I'll remind all our listeners.
That sounds perfect. I look forward to enthralling your listeners.
Yes, and you must enjoy a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Dave. Bye. That was Dave Henderson from MYeBooks in Cape Town. Let's go listen to Mika Grace Kelly, and then it's time for our news.